Hope you had a great weekend, everyone. Tim and I are back to preview the defending national champions, the JMU Dukes. And Tim, what a year it was for this program, running through conference play unbeaten, ending North Dakota State's championship run, and capturing its second national title, all in Mike Houston's first year as head coach.
I know, it's still remarkable to think back at 2016 for the Dukes. Where do you begin? Do you begin in Frisco? Do you begin at the start of the year? But not sure. 14-1 overall record. Okay, you look at the lone loss to North Carolina. Second in scoring in the FCS, 46 points per game. Fifth in rushing offense, 275 yards per game. Also set an all-time CAA football record for points scored in a season, total offense, and first downs. I mean, for me, it begins and starts at the perfect 8-0 record in CAA football play. That you think about all the great teams that have come through this conference, all the teams that have done well, and it's only been done a couple of times, but the way that this team handled it, you win at Maine, you win at New Hampshire, you win at Nova, and you also win at Richmond, then momentum just never stopped, even into the playoffs, and you go through UNH again, as you beat Sam Houston State, then you beat North Dakota State in Fargo, and of course you capped that with a national title over Youngstown State, and I still think it's hard for people to realize that was year one for Mike Houston. He didn't have any other buffer. This was year one for Brian Shore as the starting quarterback. All Shore did was, remember, we're talking about Shore last year as potentially the starter for this team. And now he's the player of the year, the preseason player of the year as well. 73.1% completion percentage, 29 touchdowns, 500-plus rushing yards, also scored 10 times on the ground. His evolution alone, individually, but as the leader, was absurd and also great to watch from our perspective. 4 starters back on offense. We talked about Jonathan Klusterman, Aaron Stinney, both preseason All-American picks, All-CAA picks, new go-to guys at wide receiver. That maybe is a little bit of a question. We see Terrence Halls and John Miller are also back, but you also see the return of Cardin Johnson. Don't forget about Cardin Johnson. He's back as well. Trey Sharp, and of course Georgia Tech transfer Marcus Marshall is also in the backfield. And while the target got a whole lot bigger and people started talking and wondering what's going to happen, the ammo is also restocked and then some, especially on offense.
Here is Coach Houston on expectations for the leader of the JMU offense, 2017 preseason CAA Offensive Player of the Year, Brian Shore.
Well, I think that Brian is who he is. So as far as his role, I thought he played his role pretty good last year, so I don't see it changing a ton. The thing that you got is now you've got a guy that has a lot of confidence in himself. Not that he didn't last year, but I think everybody else has a lot of confidence in him. I thought that his arm was stronger this spring than it was a year ago. I think that he is probably stronger right now than he was a year ago, and I think he's poised to have a great season. We really have a better year. It's all subjective. I think he's a better player right now than he was a year ago.
On the other side of the ball, Tim, you could say this Dukes defense played its best football at the end of the season a year ago. They returned 9 starters from an already experienced group that could continue that momentum into this year.
No doubt, and we're expecting the bar to be raised even more. For all the credit and the headlines that the offense get and made last year is even more impressive. How many times did we talk about the defense coming through? But in the latter half of 2016, to think about the turnaround, 17th in scoring, 21.2 points per game allowed, number 1 in interceptions in the FCS with 21, and 30th in total defense. But you just saw a swarm of bodies to the ball at any time, and it was the next man up mentality, which we'll get into. But Andrew Ankra, Raven Green, balance out the preseason All-American sections on the defensive side, so you get 2 on each side. But headlining that unit in my mind, and there's still so many guys that are still developing. Think about a Jordan Brown, a Dimitri Holloway, Cornell Urquhart, Brandon Hereford, just to name a few. You got to replace a Taylor Reynolds on the outside. You got to replace a Gage Steele and that energy from Gage Steele. But all across this roster, we do see that next man up, who's ready to play mentality, especially in postseason play when it mattered the most. And you'd only hope and have to imagine that coordinator Bob Trott and staff feel the exact same way and expect that same exact attitude, that same exact mentality to carry over into the fall.
Also, you have to look at that JMU special teams unit from last year. You expect that to continue on to 2017. No, here again is Coach Mike Houston on if the defense could even be better in 2017.
Just where we are now to where we were a year ago on that side of the ball is night and day. We were still fighting a lot of demons this time last year. We have a unit right now as we enter the season that's, they're going to be a physical, hard-nosed group that plays together, that, plays within the scheme, that plays the game the way it's supposed to be played. And they've got confidence in themselves and in each other. And so I think that it's a group that has a chance to be pretty special.
The Dukes coming off that national title run last year and a recent preseason #1 ranking. We've talked a lot about the bullseye on their back leading into this fall. So where do you begin with defending the crown this time around?
Well, I think it began of all places on Twitter. And I know that's random, but of course I'm going to start there. Mike Houston, I thought, perfectly responded to questions of repeats earlier this summer by saying he will give 115 reasons, not just one, but 115 reasons why we are not distracted by any nonsense. We are a focused, driven family. And of course, there's going to be those types of questions. There's going to be asking about pressure. Do you guys, how do you meet expectations? And more about, tell us about that national championship in 2016. But we also know that right now, up to this point in Mike Houston's career, this team has met every challenge thrown at them, especially under Coach Houston. Thinking about the start to last year, the questions, and then going through the season and winning a national championship, they've answered that call. Favorable home schedule in conference play, unlike last year, which is a huge benefit for JMU. Now the Dukes get Maine, Villanova, New Hampshire, and Richmond, all in Harrisonburg. Open the year with a winnable FBS game at East Carolina, and then you wrap up non-conference play at home. Again, 2 straight home games versus East Tennessee State and Norfolk State. So you have a nice start, and then you look at the leaders on both sides of the ball. The bar has not only been raised higher, but not just for JMU, not just for the program, not just for Mike Houston, but for the conference as well, which is really rare to see in today's day and age, which I think is going to benefit everyone, not just JMU. And we've seen the team embrace the defending talk so far, and all that is left right now is to prove that attention and all the talk and the purpose and turn that over into the positivity and thinking ahead to a completely new season. I want to see how they turn that over and shift.
The Dukes kick off 2017 on the road at East Carolina on Saturday, September the 2nd at 6 p.m. on ESPN3 and the Watch ESPN app.
And would you like to hear from defensive lineman Andrew Ankra?
Of course.
As part of our guy Mike Winley's Media Day sit-down? Well, you know what? You can right now. Head over to CAAfootball.com and all of our social media accounts, plus much more JMU info throughout today.
We continue our 12 Teams in 12 Days series on Tuesday with a preview of the Maine Black Bears. Have a great day.